Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about astrology and prolific actor Jeff Bridges recently making a statement about him being diagnosed with lymphoma. First thing I want to do is offer my prayers out to him and his family members and friends that this is something that may or may not go away. He stated he feels confident about this. I don't remember his exact words, but he seemed fairly optimistic and upbeat regarding the situation. And hopefully he will come out of this okay, and this will not be perilous. But again, it's something that could go either way. He feels optimistic. He is a sun in Sagittarius, a moon in Gemini, Virgo rising. The sun in Sagittarius to me is clearly no shocker. I mean, given his basic nature, likely I'm sure he's very optimistic, upbeat, expansive, and exuberant, and seeing the positive in many things, and in this situation trying to stay on the upside of it. And Sagittarius people can be incorrigible optimists, to say the absolute least. And the thing about this is a lot of this, I mean, he just a person, Sun in Sagittarius, Mercury in Sagittarius is very optimistic energy, and he's very probably, I mean, very somebody that just really is about moving forward. And the Mercury in Sagittarius could actually be very jocular in their speech as well, and he's somebody that I'm sure is very humorous. And having the Sun in Sagittarius, and he has the Moon in Gemini on top of that, which could give very witty responses. He's likely, with the Sun in Sagittarius and the Moon in Gemini, that Sun in Sagittarius is really that basic character, really being very exuberant, upbeat, and really and very, very positive. And a lot of that energy, to me, I mean, being given the Moon in Gemini, goes into being somebody who he's really not in one of his acting roles. In the part that he plays, that basic expression, self-expression of humor, can often go into that acting role, being another person. The Moon in which it can be reflected by the Moon in Gemini. And this acting that he does, these roles, I'm sure with the Virgo ascendant, is likely done very meticulously, very really with a lot of precision and very strong attention to detail as far as memorizing the lines go. And the thing about this is, I mean, looking at his chart again, I've stated this in previous videos, and it applies in this one. Often, I mean, he has a mutable T square configuration in his chart, which involves, it's the opposition of the Sun in Sagittarius to his Moon in Gemini, and the Virgo ascendant and Saturn are squaring this energy. And the thing about this is that he currently, when you have a T-square configuration in your natal chart, and often when significant events can occur when a transiting planet opposes the focal point of that T-square configuration. In this case, no exception, transit Neptune is making the opposition to the focal point of his T-square configuration, which is that Virgo ascendant, and Saturn appears to be Mars as well. Transit Neptune is in his 7th house now, and it's opposing the ascendant Neptune. And he has stated that he's been diagnosed with lymphoma. Neptune and Pisces energy can be connected with that. Neptune and Pisces are associated with the lymph nodes. Now, Neptune and Pisces can also manifest in diseases that can't be eradicated or cured. Now, the lymphoma thing is tricky because in some cases it can be cured, others will not be. I think a lot of it is predicated and dependent on the stage the lymphoma is in, because some people have died with it and others have been able to combat it and fight it. Now, it just means, I mean, even though it can potentially be cured, it may be one that cannot be. And a lot of that has to do, I think, with that transit of that. And you're talking about the transit of Neptune. It's making, and it's not in his sixth house of health, but it is making an opposition to his ascendant. And again, significant events may occur in one's life when you have a transit making an opposition to the focal point of the T-square configuration. It's very interesting that points in this configuration are the Sun, Moon, and Ascendant, which I think are unequivocally, they're the three major proponents in one's chart, so it could take on more significance and emphasis and figure more prominently in one's chart. At least I would say that. Now, the thing about it is it's also causing an activation, I would say, with the T-square configuration. And it's interesting when you talk about when somebody has lymphoma, it can also affect the spleen. And he has a Virgo ascendant, and that can give a propensity for physical issues with the spleen. He also has Mars in Virgo involved as well. Mars in Virgo Mars in astrology can be about physical debilitations, injuries. He may have some issues with the spleen. Again, that could be issues with the spleen. See, it also has Saturn in Virgo as well. And Saturn can be about chronic debilitations, but they also can mean difficulties in general, restrictions, and to me that can indicate issues with the spleen as well, because Virgo is associated with the spleen. And sadly, he also, I mean, having all this Virgo energy can also give a little greater risk for something with pancreatic issues like pancreatic cancer, and anyway, abdominal issues. Now, another thing what's interesting too in his chart is that the moon is involved in this T-square configuration in this chart. The moon can be associated with the chest, even though the moon is in Gemini. Moon in astrology, the planet can be associated with the chest. You can, I believe, get some symptoms or pains in the chest as a result of the lymphoma. He also has the Sun in Sagittarius conjunct his fourth house cusp, and the Sun. And you're talking about the fourth house cusp in astrology. Keep in mind, people, that every house in astrology does correspond anatomically with physical body parts. The fourth house in astrology is connected with the chest. The Sun in astrology can be associated with the physical body, and he has the Sun conjunct the fourth house cusp. The Sun, and that is involved in the mutable T-square configuration. So he also has Mercury conjunct his fourth house cusp as well, and Mercury can be about breathing issues. The Sun in the third house could put a focus on things connected with breathing, because the third house corresponds with breathing in astrology, and the Sun being in it could put a focus on it or shine the light on it. The fact it's in Sagittarius, it's not surprising. This is coming out really globally for many people to see, and it might be on a large scale considering that it is Sagittarius. Sagittarius energy certainly doesn't do anything in small doses. Now, another thing that I noticed, that the sixth house, one of the rulers of his sixth house, he has Aquarius on the cusp of his sixth house, and one of the rulers of it, Saturn, is in his first house and conjuncts the ascendant. I would say that would give a greater propensity for health issues really strongly. I mean, health issues are going to be connected with the physical body, but it's more intensified if you have the ruler of the sixth house in the first. It could also indicate that health issues can be significant on a first impression. And another thing too, I've noticed in Jeff Bridges' chart is that with Saturn on the ascendant, it could also give a propensity to lose weight, and losing weight can be a symptom of lymphoma. So anyway, I'm trying to see if there's anything else in here that is worth noting that can be connected as far as transits, natal placements associated with him having lymphoma. Well, I do notice that he has Jupiter conjunct his Venus in his chart, and you probably wonder, well, what significance is that in relative to his diagnosis of lymphoma? Well, the thing about it is that Venus in astrology can be connected with the throat, and Jupiter I've talked about Jupiter before, about being very paradoxical, could be very strongly benign and benevolent, but it could also have a tendency to enlarge and expand. And the fact that he has Jupiter conjunct his Venus, that could give a proclivity to enlarge and expand issues with the matters with the throat. And when you have lymphoma, I believe you can have the lumps in the neck. Now, they may not be visible. I don't know. I don't have enough information on that to know whether those lumps could actually be protruding out of the neck or they're just more internal, but it still has a connection with the neck. And he also has Venus and at Capricorn, the sign of restrictions, at a critical degree, 29 degrees, and it's also Capricorn energy can also be very despondent and melancholy. And you have a planet at 29 degrees. I see that as the full culmination of the sign. Venus can also be associated with sentiments and feelings. And the fact that Venus is at 29 degrees Capricorn could also give that enlargement, especially with the conjunction of Jupiter, enlargement of those feelings of sadness and sorrow, of despondency. So, and another thing too, he's got transit Saturn closing in on his natal Venus, so that could give difficulties and restrictions in matters with the neck. I don't know if swallowing can be an issue when you have something like this, but to me, if it is, that could give set transit Saturn hitting Venus, I would say, could give issues with that, because that could give difficulties with the throat, and you're trying to have things go down the throat. But it could also just be about difficulties with the throat in general, and which wouldn't exclude the lump in the throat neck area, issues in the throat and the neck, which wouldn't exclude the lumps, like from the lymphoma. So anyways, really not much more really for me to say as far as this goes. Now, another interesting thing is that he's got transit Venus right now, not far from his natal Saturn, and that could be, Venus can be about money, and it could be money being in Virgo and health related issues. It could be issues that might affect his spleen, because that could be a symptom from an issue connected with the with a lymphoma, and being being very close proximity to his natal Saturn, something associated with a difficulty in the an issue with the fact that Saturn is on his ascendant, an issue with the physical body, some difficulty with the physical body in this case, or some problems just in general, and that wouldn't exclude, I would say, physical related ones. It's also transit Venus, looks like it's closing in on his natal Mars. So right there, that could be an issue where you could be spending money on something that could be physically related. Virgo, the sign of health, and it's also, again, it could be some issues that might come of this, that might symptoms associated with the spleen. And I think even abdominal issues may be a result of this as well, and Virgo can be associated with the abdominal area. So at least part of the abdominal region, at the very least, I would say. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube. Well, one last thing I want to say, I'm sorry, before I go, And I don't want to sound overly morose or pessimistic, but there's something that transit I'm seeing it's going to come up for Jeff Bridges, I believe next year, is that the transit south node is going to conjunct his natal sun in Sagittarius. When this does happen, keep in mind, people, that the sun can be about life. The transit of the south node in transit can reflect what we're going away from. And the sun being in Sagittarius could be a life full of exuberance, optimism, happiness, jocularity, a lot of humor. Maybe one where he's played some practical jokes on people. It could be philosophy. I don't know if he's religious or not, but it could be one that was full of religion as well. And the thing is, it could be about going away from that kind of from that life, sadly. So it's just something to keep in mind. And the transit of the south node also, I think next year is going to hit his Mercury as well, and that could be about going away from, as far as breathing, and it could indicate more difficulties with breathing if he's having any now. Hold on a moment, people. Speaking of going away from issues with Mercury, I'm having trouble talking right now. It's almost like transit south node is hitting my Mercury, sadly, but it isn't. Luckily, at least not at this point in time. Anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.